Um, okay, you familiar with this? This is what we call the institutional model. What's happened here? How's it moved from an individual to an institutional model? What's changed here? There's a structure now, yes. There's a hierarchy, yes. That's right. So there's now a hierarchy, there's a structure. Now, what are the strengths of that kind of approach?
The individual can delegate and not have to do everything.
The individual doesn't have to do everything, they can actually delegate. And that's a real strength, isn't it? You don't have to do everything, right? But everything can still be done, right? That's a strength, a very significant one. What other strengths are there of this approach?
Accountability.
Accountability, yes, you have to a certain degree. Certainly you've got an accountability upwards. We'll talk about that later. So there is at least one way accountability, right? And that is significant, right? If the person is delegating responsibility, they can check up on the people they're delegating it to make sure whether they've done the job or not. That is not insignificant. But it's one way, not two way.
Management and control.
Management control is in fact enhanced. This person actually normally has a greater control in this structure than they would in that, right? Through their management structure, through their management hierarchy. Yes?
Funding, governments will fund organisations and institutions, they won't fund individuals.
Yes. Government agencies and non-government agencies are much more likely to fund this approach rather than that, because they believe it will be sustainable, right? And there's a good argument for saying that that is much more sustainable. Okay, are we agreed on that? Okay, but what are the weaknesses of this approach?
Selfish or sort of your agenda is the prime sort of thing, so you don't want to get into any other areas.
Well, still organised by one person, right?
The institution captures the energy.
The institution captures the energy, yes, so that the institution actually co-opts these people for its own purposes. I just need some water. Could I have yours, Heather? Yeah, go on. What are some other weaknesses? There's creative options for the person at the top. But for the people at the bottom, there's very serious constraints on their creativity, right? That's true.
Work that goes onto managing that may be used for energy.
That's right. So some of the energies that would have been for even the person at the top in terms of creativity might be going into management rather than actually creative engagement. Yes. What's happening in terms of accountability? What's the weakness in terms of accountability?
Still the one dot has got very little, and there's sort of not, from both of them, I think there's no real critique or...
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So the accountability is one way, right? It's top down, not bottom up.
And also it's kind of within the institution, so it's not really so much relating to whatever they're trying to do out there. It becomes an inward kind of...
And so because of these constraints, when you're actually here at the bottom, the history of Christian groups and organisations is normally like this. Right? So somebody starts something out with a lot of energy, enthusiasm, they can't sustain it, so they form some kind of institution around their vision and their passion, which works really well for a while, but then other people that join in that feel like there's no place for them except as apparatchiks, and they then think, well, I've got to start my own thing. So then they go off and they start their own thing. And the same cycle happens again and again. Do you understand that? Now, Which of these approaches is Trinitarian? Neither. Thank you very much. Neither. People often mistake this as Trinitarian because they see it as... They do. They see that as a triangle, and so they think it's Trinitarian, but it's not. Okay? How would you make either of those Trinitarian? Would somebody like to come here, pick up a pen and show how to do it? Or would you like to give me instructions?
Haven't you already got it there?
No.
The other one? In a minute?
Okay, right. Using that as a guide, how do you make either of these Trinitarian?
Little triangle in the middle instead of the dot.
Yeah, well, just by connecting those back and forward and making that right? The way you make that individual model Trinitarian is by making those relationships mutual. Right? And the same here. The way you make this Trinitarian is by linking these people together. Right? We don't actually have to destroy other people's ministry in order to create community. Did you get that? Now that's important. Did you hear what I said? We don't actually have to destroy other people's ministries to make them community. What we need to do is reframe the relationships from hierarchy in terms of mutuality. Is that clear?
Can you say that again, please?
We don't have to destroy other people's ministries to create community. But we do need to reframe the hierarchy in terms of mutuality. Is that clear? In our next session, we'll go into that greater detail because I want to look at the Trinity as a matrix for transforming organisations. But we'll leave that there for the time being. We'll come to that in the next session. What I want to do at the moment is then say, how did we develop community work out of our Christian groups and organisations that is authentically a Trinitarian approach? So we have a church here. And somebody in the church wants to do a visiting program. Typically, they will go out and visit people in their community, and they will encourage other people to do likewise. What kind of approach is that? Individual. Has it got some value? Yes, because you meet people who are lonely. You visit them. It has value. But notice, it is not community development. It is a service, a community service. Right? It's not community development, it's a community service. It is providing a service in community, but it is not creating community. Do you get that? Okay. Somebody comes along and says, look, that's not really sustainable, it's all depending on you. What we really need to do is form a committee in the church who will develop a visiting program, and then we will train people on how to visit people, and they will go out and visit people in our community. Sounds very familiar? It's a typical way in which we engage the community. Now, has this got any advantages over the individual model? Yes. It's likely to happen more often for a longer period of time with more people. And does that have value? Yes, a lot more people are going to get visits who are lonely. But it is community service, not community development. It is providing a service in community. It is not creating community. Is that clear? Right? What would it mean for somebody in a church to do community work in a locality that is Trinitarian? Would somebody come like to show me